Here's the business model. Buying land, building houses. You gotta be specific, guys. There is market volatility always. And one of the biggest things when there's market volatility is that how do you prepare yourself for the worst? And most people don't, and that's the biggest problem. Everybody's functioning on today. How am I going to make a profit today? What is today's market? But the biggest problem in real estate is that transactions take time. And when transactions take time, you need to position yourself for the unknown, right? You want to position yourself to be able to go in there and set yourself up for the worst case scenario. Now, we don't know what those worst cases are. The pandemic was something that's outside of our control, actually landed up being a very beneficial thing for the real estate market, but sometimes there's the contrary. And so one thing that has tested time in business and what we do for over 28 years is a single family home space. Here's the business model. And I tell you guys, don't reinvent the wheel. If it's not broken, don't fix it. And one of the things that makes what we do work so well is the fact that we hit target the demographics of the upper middle class, which is 24% of home buyers. Now, when you go in and you're building houses, even investing in houses, if you're going to make a profit in them, guys, the resale price, even on a fix and flip, you might be able to acquire the house at 400 grand, but you got to get into that 600 to 1.2 million dollar range. Now, here's how the business model works. When you're doing ground up construction, you're buying land, you're building houses, you look for this business model first. You don't look for land first. You look for this business model first, and wherever houses are being built between 600 and 1.2 million dollars, you can go in. You want to be the smaller guy in a big area where houses are selling predominantly within this sector, because this is the demographics that they're hitting right here. And this is a more recession-proof area because these folks have expendable capital. They're not functioning with the masses where they're going in and they're competing with D.R. Horton, Pulte, Lennar, all the big builders, LGI, all the big guys. And those guys are functioning on the middle class. That's 74% of our population. But that reduces and compresses your profit because these guys are building in volume. So if they go in and they make a $50,000 profit on every single unit they build, multiplied by thousands upon thousands of homes nationwide, it's extremely lucrative, extremely profitable. And what they're looking for is EBITDA growth. They're looking for mass growth over the course of their company where they can go in and in 1 year where they do 100,000 builds, next year they go in and do 110,000 builds. They're doing volume. Nobody on this video has the bandwidth to do that. So one of the big things that I tell people is don't compete with the masses. Go in after the larger profits, and they sit right here. Right here, you can make between $100,000 and $200,000 profit. And on some of these larger ones, you can potentially make even more. Now, I tell you guys, caution yourself as you hit that $1 million mark, because that's where you start hitting the ultra wealthy, which is only responsible for 2% of home buyers nationwide. There's not enough market pull in that sector. So here's what we look for. We look for the masses of the 24% because there's enough of them. These people have expendable income under market compressions, and when inflation happens, these are our moms, our parents, our grandparents, people that have worked a 30-year career, they've retired, they've sold 1, 2, 3 homes, they have extra money that's come in from an asset that they once purchased for a low price, sold it at a higher price, and have this expendable capital. Or they've worked an entire career and they have pension, they have some type of retirement, but they've had savings, and so they're not affected by this. Or they're the demographics of working professionals that have higher affluent careers that pay them better, and they shop in this market. Now, with that said, guys, let's take an example. What does it look like? Here's what the business model looks like for profitability. Let's take a simple median home within this area here. Not an average median home, the upper middle class, but the median of $600 to $1.2 million. That's a $750,000 house. When we go in, guys, at a $750,000 resale price on that house, let's say that that house is right around 2,250 square feet. Now, the square footage does affect this. You guys want to stay someplace in between 1,350 square feet on the small end. It gets too small, they're harder to sell. And if you start getting smaller, you might want to do them condo style, loft style, or you might want to do them condominium style. So when we go in and we're looking at this, you can either do single family detached units, which is 99% of what we do, and I recommend you guys do too, unless you're in an area where there's only the availability to build dense. These are inner city areas. Now, 1,350 is about the smallest that I'd get on any single family build. Now, the largest asset that I would build would be somewhere closer to about 3,000 square feet in the single family sector. Now, if you're in Texas and some of these areas where houses are slightly larger, maybe you'd hit that 3,100 to 3,300 square foot range, but caution yourself from the larger homes. And the reason why is you want to stay within a threshold of what people are purchasing because of what they need, not what they want. And one of the largest issues news in the market today is the fact that most people go in and they overbuild. And when you overbuild, people will not spend on the extra square footage on a home if they don't necessarily need it, because they have to save money. They have to be there at a place where they have a fixed ceiling of what their income is in the moment, and that's what's going to depict what they can purchase. And so always build what people need, not what they want. You can build somebody a nice 4-bedroom home, 3-bathroom home for 2,800 square feet, 2,700 square feet, 2,500 square feet, and most people are going to buy houses in the lower 2,000 to 2,500 square feet in this building sector. Okay, now with that said, let's take this 2,250 square feet. Let's do $165 per square foot on the build cost of that home. If you ask the National Association of Home Builders what the average price to build a house is nationwide, it's $141 per square foot currently in the current market. Now, because most of you guys are not general contractors and would probably hire a general contractor to help facilitate your first or second build, it's going to cost you a little bit extra, somewhere between $50,000 to $60,000. We have a process of how we hire general contractors. The first one that you go out and interview isn't the one you typically will hire. It's called the process of 30 because you're going to talk to 30 general contractors. Now, there's a method to that, and that's for a whole other video, which I'll recommend later after this video. Now, with that said, because there's some additional costs, it's going to cost you someplace about $165 a square foot to build a nice house. Now, we do that, take that 2,250 square feet at $165, that build cost is going to be $371,250. Now, the land is going to cost you someplace between $80,000 and $150,000, depending on your demographic area in your region. Sometimes the lots that are for sale, that stay for sale, are overpriced. And I understand that some of those lots are overpriced. So you go in where most builders are already crushing it, and there's a vast majority of lots that are selling within a threshold of reason at the same cost. Your land cost is going to be right around $130,000. We take the gross of those two, that's $501,000. This is what your loan proceeds need to be in order to build and facilitate that house, okay? Now, for most of you guys in here, you don't want to have to pay for the land. I don't want to either. I want the bank to pay for that land, or I want to owner finance that land if I'm using a line of credit, a home equity line, or some type of business line of credit to facilitate the build. But if I'm doing a traditional construction loan, my first draw is going to be for this land. Now, we take that $130,000, we take the build cost of $371,000, and we're going to have some debt service on that. We take this $501,000 based on a 9% interest rate. We're going to have about $20,000 in debt service because it's a 6-month build, not a 1-year build. Then we sell the house and we get out of the construction loan. Plus, you only get charged interest on what you've drawn. So they just don't dump $500,000 in your bank account. They'll maybe your first draw is $130,000. You're only paying interest on the $130,000. When you do your foundation and your framing, you're only paying interest on what you have drawn on, not what you have been loaned to on the gross amount. So your debt service will be reduced from the entire annual percentage rate. You'll be about $20,000, actually be about $15,000, but we'll just overestimate. Now, with that said, your closing costs on a $750,000 house is going to be about 6%. You pay about 2.5% to your buyer's broker, 2.5% to your selling broker, and about 1% to your escrow company. It's going to be about $45,000. Make sure, based on the new National Association of Realtor rules, you guys are negotiating your commissions, because they now have to disclose what those commissions are and what the services are before they actually take the listing or work for you. So $45,000. Your total cost in is $566,000. You subtract that from the $750,000 range, you're sitting at about a $184,000 net profit. Now, with that said, the variabilities are going to change from house to house, product to product, and the way you manage it is a big variable on how much you actually net. So I tell you guys, get educated. Everybody needs a mentor. And one of the biggest things is position yourself to where you don't reinvent the wheel and you take advantage of an already proven business model that we've been facilitating for 28 years. And if it's not me, find somebody that you can follow within a business model that can bear you 6-figure profits on every single build. And ladies and gentlemen, when you do that, you'll continue to profit. Now, the biggest thing is, how do you scale that? And when you take one single family home, and once you've done it once, you'll never build one again. You'll always build multiple homes. You'll go in and build a minimum of 2 at a time, because the same amount of work goes into building one as goes into building 2. And one of the biggest things that you want to do is take advantage and leverage the best use of your time, your dollars, and increase your profits. Ladies and gentlemen, that's ultimately how you'll go in and compound your success. To get notified for more videos just like this, click and subscribe to our YouTube channel, smash that thumbs up button, and I'll see you inside.